Alabama, the state most Americans overlook when thinking about where to live. Hot summers, sweet tea, maybe some vague images of cotton fields. Not exactly the first place that springs to mind when thinking about relocating. But hidden within this overlooked corner of America are towns that defy every assumption you brought with you. Communities built on secrets that outsiders were never supposed to discover. By the end of this, you will understand why thousands of people are quietly moving here. Now, let us begin. We start our countdown in northeast Alabama with a city called Gadsden. It sits about 60 miles from Birmingham, surrounded by some of the most gorgeous natural landscape in the state. Mountains, rivers, hiking trails that stretch for miles. The kind of scenery that belongs on a postcard. And the housing prices will stop you in your tracks. The median home here sells for around $113,500. That is not a typo. That makes Gadsden officially the most affordable place to live in the entire state of Alabama. For active retirees who love spending time outdoors, this should be paradise. Noccalula Falls plunges 90 feet over a limestone gorge right at the edge of town. You can watch the water cascade down while walking trails that wind through botanical gardens and pioneer homesteads. Except here is the puzzle. This city has lost roughly half its population since the 1960s. The downtown streets that once bustled with workers heading to the Goodyear tire plant and Republic Steel now echo with a quieter rhythm. So what happened? Gadsden was a manufacturing powerhouse until globalization and automation hollowed out the industrial base. The steel mills closed, the rubber factories scaled back, families left for opportunities elsewhere. But here is what the population decline created: a surplus of solid housing stock at prices that barely register by British standards. The bones of the community remain intact. Healthcare facilities still operate. The natural surroundings never left. For those willing to look past the empty storefronts on Broad Street, something genuine waits underneath. Gadsden lost its industry, but kept its dignity. The next place lost something far stranger and gained a scientific mystery that baffled geologists for decades. Number 9 takes us to Wetumpka. This small city sits just northeast of Montgomery along the Coosa River. Pleasant enough downtown? Charming historic buildings. The kind of place you might drive through without a second glance. Until someone tells you what you are actually standing on. The hills just east of downtown are the eroded remains of a 5-mile-wide meteor crater blasted into the bedrock approximately 85 million years ago. The force of that ancient impact was around 175,000 times more powerful than the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. You read that correctly. This quiet Alabama town sits directly on ground zero of the greatest natural disaster in the state's geological history. Scientists from around the world have studied this site. It is considered one of the best preserved marine impact craters anywhere on Earth. The crater is so well preserved because the meteor struck an ancient sea, leaving distinct features that survived millions of years of erosion. So, why would anyone build a town here? The answer lies in what the impact created. Unique soil composition, unusual river drainage patterns. The very features that made this land distinctive also made it practical for settlement. Today, Wetumpka leans into its cosmic heritage. Every New Year's Eve, the town celebrates with a spectacular recreation of a falling, exploding meteor lighting up the Alabama sky. Housing prices remain well below state averages. The locals have turned catastrophe into identity. Wetumpka was shaped by something that fell from space. The next place was shaped by an idea that fell out of favor everywhere else on Earth. Number 8 brings us to Fairhope on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay. This is where things get genuinely strange. In 1894, a group of reformers from the American Midwest arrived on these shores with a radical dream. They wanted to build a utopia based on the economic theories of Henry George. George argued that land should be common property, with rent charged for its use funding the entire community. No income tax, no sales tax, just land value taxation. Dozens of similar utopian single tax colonies were attempted across America, but Fairhope became the most famous and longest-lasting survivor. The Fairhope Single Tax Corporation still exists today. It still functions. It still owns approximately 4,000 acres of land in the town. 130 years later, in the heart of conservative Alabama, a working socialist land experiment continues operating. The puzzle is obvious. How did this survive when every other attempt collapsed? The answer lies in adaptation. During hard economic times, the colony donated beachfront property to the city, creating public parks that attracted visitors. Artists and writers discovered the community. Freethinkers settled alongside the original idealists. Today, Fairhope functions as both a living historical experiment and an upscale retirement destination. Walkable downtown streets, bayfront sunsets, a weekly farmers market. The utopia survived by becoming something its founders never imagined. Fairhope proved that utopia could endure if it bent with the times. The next place bent history itself, and the world still comes to walk across its most famous landmark. Number 7. Selma. This is the name that carries weight. Even from across the Atlantic, most people know something happened here. On the 7th of March, 1965, 600 marchers set out from Brown Chapel to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They were protesting the exclusion of African Americans from voter registration. What happened on the other side of that bridge changed the course of American civil rights history. State troopers attacked the peaceful marchers with clubs and tear gas. Those images were broadcast around the world. Within months, the Voting Rights Act became law. Selma became sacred ground. But here is what most outsiders never learn. This city of approximately 17,000 people has a cost of living 5% lower than the state average. The median home price hovers around $119,000. 81% of the population is African American. The town has lost more than 10,000 residents since the Civil Rights era, driven partly by economic decline and white flight. Yet the architectural wonders remain standing. Antebellum mansions line the streets. The bridge still arches over the Alabama River. Every March, thousands return for the annual commemoration, walking the same route those brave marchers took more than 60 years ago. For history-minded retirees seeking surroundings with genuine meaning, Selma offers hallowed ground at working-class prices. The outmigration that made this place affordable also preserves something authentic. The story is still being written. Selma changed the world with a bridge and a march. The next place changed the world with a drum beat and a recording studio that nobody expected to find in rural Alabama. Number 6. Muscle Shoals and Florence. These twin towns sit along the Tennessee River in northwest Alabama. Farm country, cotton fields. Not exactly where you would expect to find one of the most important recording studios in music history. In 1959, a man named Rick Hall set up Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises above a drugstore. The studio moved to a former tobacco warehouse on Wilson Dam Road in 1960. What happened next defies every assumption about where great art comes from. Wilson Pickett recorded here. Aretha Franklin recorded here. The Rolling Stones flew across the Atlantic to capture the Muscle Shoals sound. Bob Dylan, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Etta James, the Black Keys decades later. All of them came to this small collection of towns along a river in Alabama. The puzzle is staggering. How did this happen here? The session musicians who lived in Muscle Shoals developed something that could not be replicated in Nashville or New York, a distinctive rhythm, a particular feel. And perhaps most remarkably, this all took place against the backdrop of the civil rights struggle. In the recording studio, black and white musicians worked together blind to color. The New Yorker magazine concluded that Muscle Shoals remains remarkable not just for the music made there, but for its complete unlikeliness as an epicenter of anything. Florence today has a cost of living 5% lower than the state average and 16% below the national figure. The studios still operate. The history still echoes off the walls. Muscle Shoals proved that world-changing art can emerge from the most unexpected places. The next town is proving that world-changing technology can do exactly the same thing. Number 5. Huntsville. At the end of World War II, this was a quiet cotton farming town in northern Alabama. Then the United States government made a decision that would transform everything. They brought German rocket scientists to America under a program called Operation Paperclip. Among them was Wernher von Braun. They settled in Huntsville. The rockets that eventually carried Americans to the moon were designed and tested here. Today, the defense and aerospace industry employs more than 70,000 workers in the Huntsville area. The economic impact exceeds $6 billion annually. Cummings Research Park hosts over 300 companies specializing in aerospace, defense, biotechnology, and information technology. More than 26,000 people work in that single research park. Both Madison and Limestone counties have experienced surging population growth as the region becomes a magnet for high-tech employers. The puzzle seems obvious now, but consider how unlikely this was. A cotton town in Alabama becoming America's most important space and defense hub. The relocation of those German scientists represents one of the most successful talent migrations in history. Today, housing remains more affordable than comparable technology centers like Austin or Seattle. The same expertise that put humans on the moon continues attracting new residents who want meaningful work without coastal prices. Huntsville attracted rocket scientists from across the Atlantic. The next place attracts retirees from across America with something far simpler but equally compelling. Number 4. Gulf Shores and Foley. Alabama has beaches. Most British people do not know this. 32 miles of white sand coastline along the Gulf of Mexico. The same turquoise waters. The same sugar white sand. The same pelicans diving for fish. But without the Florida markup. Gulf Shores has become one of the best beach towns for retirees in Alabama, with a thriving population of residents over 65. The social opportunities and activities rival any Florida coastal community. Charter fishing boats head out each morning. Golf courses line the back roads. Seafood restaurants serve fresh catches pulled from the Gulf that same day. Just inland sits Foley. A nationwide survey recently ranked Foley the most cost-effective retirement city in the entire United States. Not just Alabama, the entire country. Housing averages around $309,900, more attainable than beach markets just across the state line in Florida. Alabama does not tax Social Security income. Nearly 1 in 5 state residents is 65 or older. The combination creates something powerful for budget-conscious retirees seeking coastal living. The puzzle is why anyone would pay Florida prices when the same Gulf waters lap against Alabama shores. The answer is simply that most people do not know these beaches exist. The Gulf Coast offers beaches at lower cost. The next place offers something harder to quantify, but equally valuable to those who find it. Number 3. Cullman. This town in north-central Alabama feels different the moment you arrive. The architecture tells you something unusual happened here. Bavarian influences, German heritage buildings, a distinctly European atmosphere in the middle of the American South. In 1873, a man named Colonel John Cullman recruited German immigrants to settle this area. They brought their traditions, their building styles, their festivals. And unlike many immigrant communities that gradually assimilated, Cullman maintained its cultural identity through generations. The Ave Maria Grotto draws visitors from around the world. A Benedictine monk spent 50 years creating 125 miniature reproductions of famous religious structures. They call it Jerusalem in miniature. Lewis Smith Lake stretches just south of town. Created in 1961 by damming the Sipsey Fork, this reservoir has become one of the most popular recreation areas in Alabama. The lake spans over 21,000 acres with more than 500 miles of shoreline. Fishermen chase spotted bass through the clear waters, while families gather on hidden coves accessible only by boat. Property taxes in Cullman rank among the lowest in the entire country, a genuine blessing for anyone living on a fixed income. The puzzle of how a German town emerged in the Deep South has a simple answer. One determined man with a vision, an immigrant seeking opportunity. What they built has outlasted nearly every other ethnic enclave of its era. Coleman preserved its heritage through generations of change. The next place is quietly becoming something new, while the rest of the world looks elsewhere. Number 2. Daphne and Spanish Fort. These communities sit on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay. Locals consider this stretch of waterfront Alabama's best-kept secret. Daphne is known as the Jubilee City for an event that occurs nowhere else on Earth. On certain summer nights, fish, crabs, and shrimp suddenly swarm into the shallow waters along the shore. The oxygen levels in the bay shift, and the marine life moves toward breathable water. Residents wake each other with phone calls. Families rush to the shore with buckets and nets. An entire community gathers to harvest the bounty. It is part science and part magic. Spanish Fort sits just 15 minutes from Mobile, offering all the benefits of bay proximity without the congestion of the larger city. Many consider it among the best retirement locations in Alabama. Daphne offers excellent healthcare facilities. The cost of living runs lower than other waterfront communities. The average home sells for approximately $328,000, substantially less than direct Gulf Beach properties. The puzzle is why tourists flock to the ocean beaches while locals treasure the bay. Those who settle here understand. The Jubilee creates community moments found nowhere else. The sunsets over Mobile Bay rival anything on the coast. And the prices make waterfront living actually achievable. The Eastern Shore delivers waterfront living without waterfront prices, but our number one entry delivers something that defies every expectation outsiders bring to Alabama. Number 1. Enterprise. This small city in southeast Alabama has a monument in its downtown that confuses every visitor who sees it. Standing in the center of Main Street is a statue of a woman holding above her head a giant boll weevil, an insect, a pest. The very creature that devastated the cotton economy that Enterprise depended upon in the early 1900s. The boll weevil arrived from Mexico and spread across the cotton-growing South, destroying crops and livelihoods wherever it went. Enterprise should have collapsed. The entire economic foundation was crumbling. But something unexpected happened instead. Farmers diversified. They planted peanuts. They tried other crops. Within years, the region became more prosperous than it had ever been under cotton monoculture. In 1919, the town made a decision that still startles visitors today. They erected a monument to the boll weevil. The inscription thanks the pest for forcing the community to change. Housing costs in Enterprise run about 30% below the national average. Property taxes rank among the lowest in the country. The town thrives with recreational activities and a close-knit, military-friendly atmosphere thanks to nearby Fort Novosel. But that monument in the town center tells you everything you need to know about Alabama that outsiders miss. The thing that looks like destruction might actually be deliverance. The disaster that should have ended. Everything became the beginning of something better. A small town in the Deep South understood this truth over a century ago. They built a statue to make sure they never forgot.